Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Allan Barry Laboucan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. Recently, I started covering Norsemont for the second time. The first time was back in the first iteration of Norsemont was back in the 2001 to 2011 metals bull market, and they were one of the companies that I consider in my mining hall of fame. And how you get in my mining hall of fame is I pick you at like 25 cents or 50 cents, and you go on to have a big success and get bought out at a $500 million or something like that. I can't remember the exact price, but why I'm so excited about Norsemont 2.0 is they have a tremendous project in Chile. And Chile is following a lot of the lead that Argentina is doing with Malay to make it mining friendly. Recently, I think it was like the day before I did my interview with Mark 10 days ago or something, they announced that they were going to cut the permitting by 75%. So Chile is back on the mining excitement. I'm super glad about it because the geology is great down there, and Norsemont has a spectacular project. And I'm happy to have Mark on again. Mark, thanks a lot for joining me.
Yeah, I'm happy to see you again. And yeah, that was perfect timing the first go around here. Obviously, with Norsemont 1.0, we did very well and created a nice exit at $5 or 520 million for our shareholders and yourself. And now we're back at it again. And the good thing, like you said, is Chile's cutting back the permitting times, which is going to be a good bode for, I think, the mining and industry. And I think there's some really good political movement happening that's very supportive of mining and mining permits. So that'll be a really good situation for us.
So not long after I interviewed you, Mark, and the stock went up nicely, one of my haters started writing a troll on the internet, started writing some nasty things about you and me, your company and me. He said you had all these problems regarding where you're located in Chile, and that there's potential recovery problems with your sulfides. He called me a paid promoter, and I'm just an innocent bystander. I don't own any stock, and I don't and you're not paying me. So a lot of nasty stuff was written in the last week or so, and it actually kind of backed your stock up. But I was really positive to see that it didn't do it. You were still able to retain a lot of the big move that you've made of late. And I think we're onwards and upwards from here, but let's have a little chat about this nastiness on the internet.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. As you said, we have an internet troll that was, spreading a lot of misinformation and trying to be, and acting maliciously towards us in every way they can with regards to community, metallurgy, location, geology, and all that they put out there was quite misinformed and inaccurate. And yeah, it did cause, a lot of hiccups with our share price, which we weren't very happy about and we're very disappointed about. But as you can see, we've put out some news today to hopefully clear out the air and people understand that everything that was said by this internet troll, as you've labeled him, is inaccurate. So hopefully it puts an end to this silliness.
Well, it's
Uh,
his modus operandi because he's actually made racist comments about me in the past. And if anybody wants to, well, I'm not going to show anybody, but I have copies of them, let's say.
that's
And
unfortunate.
but yeah, that's his modus operandi. When he doesn't like somebody, he flames out there a lot of nonsense. And the two big themes of his bashing of Norsemont, one was where you're located, and you address that in your news release. And something I'm going to address is the questions about the metallurgy. And But let's start out with some of that. What did you talk about in your news release today?
In the news release, we talked a bit about the location of the project and the existing permits that we have in place, that they are indefinite. They're under the specific mining laws that provide us the ability to mine the majority of our existing resource. We talked a lot about the metallurgy.
Now, he said you guys were in a national reserve, but
Yeah,
because it's been a lot of the that has been grandfathered in my reading of the of your NI 43-101, a lot of that has been grandfathered in, so you get to keep moving forward with the project because it's been in that, and since then it's been a mine, it's been drilled, all this sort of stuff. So,
yeah. I guess I mean what he
non-lawyer audience out there, maybe break it down
yeah,
for me.
what he originally said was we're in the middle of a park. And then we kind of responded with a picture of where our claims are. And you can see that we're not in the middle of the park. So then he deleted that and posted the middle of a reserve. The whole area may be designated as a reserve, but we're not in the middle of the park. We're next to the park. We were
Right.
previously, obviously, a producer. We have an indefinite exploration, exploitation, mining permits, two of them actually that have presidential decrees on them. And so I don't know why he brought up those challenges. And he had previously done a lot of due diligence on the company and covered us back in 2020. So I don't understand
Didn't he
why,
put a big price
he came
target on
out
you of
very
like $4 or something like that?
450, yeah, 445 based on $1,700 gold. So if you want to use his due diligence and the current gold price, you might get a better trajectory than what we had back in 2020 when he was a big supporter and he had said he did all the due diligence in the world, which he did a very extensive and impressive report on us. So
Well, but I think he
surprised about these
I
turn
don't think his
events.
due diligence was quite as good as he thinks it is because I read your Norton NI 43-101, and on both of the things that he was bashing you over, I found interesting information. And I want to go into some of that about the recovery issue. But before we do that, yeah, so I think my understanding is correct that although they can designate, change certain land issues, they can't go back against the historical mining laws. And that's why the project has been able to keep moving forward. It was a mine, keep moving forward to be drilled. I mean, you guys just drilled it a couple of years ago. You did some
Yeah.
drilling on it a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah, we've done several we've had several drilling campaigns and we've done some sampling trenching campaigns as well that we had put out data. And that's why part of the news release addresses this community stakeholders have been very supportive of us and the government has been very supportive of us. Before that great news in reduction of permitting times came out, they were on side with us. And obviously we're trying to be good corporate citizens with the community, as we know it's important, and we create opportunity and employment there and work with them and consult with them on everything we do.
Now, when was this park or reserve area established?
Hmm.
Do you know?
I don't know because I know
But I think it was
the law was
before
1938 and then
80,
1983 or
80,
something like that was the
right,
last update of it,
right.
which is what we're under. We're under the law, the mining law of 1983, I think is the latest.
Yeah,
Uh,
because on your property, there's like all the mining stuff, the mill, the mining, the facility, it's all been built there. And I was wondering
yeah.
if that happened after there was a change to the land in the area.
Well, this originally went into production right in the mid 80s. So I think when that law came into effect, this went into production with Shell, which was a very big oil and gas company, right? And acted responsibility. And there is no known, and we said this in our news release, there's been no contaminations or any issues with previous production. And you know, so there's no reason for a community to be offside because there's been no mistakes made, no messes made that caused any serious damages. And the yeah, I mean, look, it's a very unique situation where you've got a past producer, you've got the infrastructure that's there, which is extensive. We've inherited, you know, David Lang told me, I remember him saying this, and I didn't know what to expect, but he said, "Oh, you've inherited 150 to 175 million of infrastructure back in." I think we did an interview in 21, 22, and I was like, "Wow, that's worth a lot of money. All the power, all the roads, you know, backup generators, ADR effluent plant, the 3,000 ton a day mill, lab. Like we have so much infrastructure there, which is great." And will help us as we move this forward towards a production scenario.
So not only do you have all the mining infrastructure there, you've also got stockpiles that were stockpiled when metals prices were a lot less than they are now. I was just actually did an interview with Heliostar, and that's how they're becoming a junior miner. And they're starting out by processing the stockpiles and using that to help them then look at additional pits and stuff like that. And this is something that I'm very excited about because there's actually two other companies, Borealis Mining in Nevada and Heliostar in Mexico, that are kind of following, they're kind of doing what you plan on doing, which is to process that material that's left over, that was left over when prices of the metals were a lot cheaper. And these kind of scenarios can be really good launch pads to becoming a junior miner and then becoming a bigger miner.
Yeah, no, I like what Heliostar is doing. I watched the stock, and it's a similar situation. The difference might be that we already have a lot of infrastructure from being a previous miner, number one, and number two, we have delineated a very large resource outside of just those materials,
That
the
are above
leftover
ground,
materials.
right?
Yeah, so we have a bigger runway already in our 4301. You know, we've got 2.74 million total ounces, and of that 550 plus 550,000 ounces are oxide. So we could run that through production scenario on a leaching operation, which obviously has amazing recoveries, as most people know, up to 90%. And we also have got some zones that we announced previously, but we didn't. Maybe we got to reiterate it to the market, where we discovered a whole bunch of new oxide, high grade oxide zones, where we have 2, 5, and 10 gram material at surface.
Wow.
So we want to go back and delineate another several 100,000 ounces of higher grade material. So if we can get ourselves towards 1.5 million ounce of oxides while we are moving into this production scenario with the existing rock on the surface ready to be processed. And as you said, the cash flow that would be generated at these prices is astronomical. And the
Because you
value of that,
already got an ADR plant there, so you can process it right there. It's already all ready to go. Of course, it might need some refurbishment, but
yeah,
that's not like you have to go out and spend $250 million or more today to process the oxides because that's what was being mined there before, right?
correct. And a lot of the oxides they mined in the past was very, well, what we would consider ultra high grade, like multi-gram material. So the leftover materials that they had, which may have been back then low grade, was material near a gram, which today is obviously very high grade. You look at Rio
Super.
2, which is an excellent company, and their grades are, half or a third of what we're going to start processing with. And they're running a really good operation. Their valuation's really good, and they're moving to production. They're in Chile, so it just shows you that Chile's open for business and supportive of the mining companies that are responsible there. And we've got huge upside, obviously, like you said, with the cash sitting on the ground at these prices.
Yeah, that Rio 2 is a really exciting story. They got really sharp people running that company, and they've had success building and mining before, and it's had a lot of success. And I wasn't I was looking at it when it was like that they were getting bashed a couple years ago, and they turned things around dramatically, and I just wasn't quick enough on the draw to make them a pick. But I really like that Rio 2 story, and it's in Chile, just like you guys are.
Yeah, and it's actually a good comparison to Norsemont, where they're moving towards production, de-risk the asset, and have a lot of cash on hand to move there. And we're several steps behind them, but their valuation is sitting at 700 million, and their
Wow.
grade is not as good as ours. But they've got a rock star management team. I know Alex; he's a really good guy. I've invested in their
Really
company.
interesting cat too. He's kind of
Yeah,
a rebellious kind of guy. I like him a lot, actually.
I,
I got to
I,
get him on his show.
I used to, yeah, he's a really good guy, and Bob Baxter, who used to work with him, came and worked with us on Norsemont 1.0, and that's kind of how I got to meet him a little bit because Bob, uh, God rest his soul, he's passed away, but was an amazing operator for us on Norsemont 1.0 and worked with Alex and had good things. And so, yeah, I like what Rio 2 is doing. I'm an investor in Rio 2, and their stock has really done very well. Sorry, I'm out here promoting them, but
That's
you know,
okay.
it shows the pathway of where we want to be.
That's right. That's right.
It
That's
shows the
good.
potential of where we want to be. And our potential resource that we're targeting globally is much larger than theirs with, how much higher grades. So, telling our investors that's what we can be, that's the starting point, not the end point. So there's a lot of huge upside, little plug for Norsemont here. But
Yeah.
and
Well,
Chile,
it's
you know
a
what?
sort
Look
of
at
a
Chile. He's been doing the right
plug.
moves now.
That's right. It's a plug for Chile. And in the bull market from 2001 to 2011, I had some really good picks in Chile, and I love the geology of Chile, and I'm really happy to see the change in the government's attitude. I can see myself picking more Chilean projects, but I think I got a really good one here because I did a lot of homework and looked through your technical reports, your presentations, and all that. And one thing that stood out to me was the oxide exploration potential. There's a couple of pits, and in between, there's hardly any drilling. And so I think that there's a lot more oxide potential around there as well. And that could be near-term production. And, I think it just needs, to roll up the sleeves a little on the exploration to target the oxides.
Yeah, no, you're 100% correct. And Scott Wilson, who actually did our initial resource estimate, when he went down there, he said his comment was, "I can see the difference between the gray rocks and the brown rocks, and everything's oxidized here, Mark. You guys got to get to work." And we did put out, like I said previously, news on that higher grade oxide zone. But yes, there's a ton of oxide throughout the project to allow us to grow the resource, and that's where we feel it's reasonable saying, "Hey, we'd like to target 1.5 million ounce oxide resource." It's not. It's a very safe number, knowing what we know and what we've done with the project. And there's some other zones in our deck that we don't even address much. The PROA zone, where there's like a 50-meter hole of a gram of gold, and I forget if it's like 20 grams silver. So we've got and that's oxidized. So there's a lot of other oxide zones, but we got the good stuff. I guess the heart of the steak here that we gotta delineate and then work on stepping out and finding even more.
Well, another thing I did when I did my homework is one of my favorite tools of exploration is Google Earth. And so I went on Google Earth and went to your project. And what I saw there, Mark, is what you just talked about. When metals bearing fluids interact with the country rock, they chemically alter that. And what I saw in your project was this massive alteration zones that I could see easily from Google Earth. So all of those are potentially oxide targets that I'm sure you guys will get to because they just stand out like a sore thumb.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a large project with a lot of exploration upside, and as we've talked previously about, we've discovered a gold porphyry in the northwestern part.
Oh, hold on. Before we get into the porphyry, there's
Yes,
another big subject that I want to talk about regarding my arch enemy troll that likes to bash me constantly, and he even tells me I'm not welcome on his Twitter feed. But he keeps using my name and keeps making, and then he closes the comments so I can't say anything. But here is my show and I can say something. Allegedly, he's one of the great due diligence guys. Well, and his bash is that, oh, a lot of your resources in sulfides. And I want to address that sulfide
yeah,
question because I did some homework. And do you mind if I read something from your NI 43-101 report that's available for any due diligence expert to look at?
absolutely. I'd love to dive into that.
All right. I'm going to get it up here right now. It's on page 80 for anyone wanting to do their homework. And it starts with a paragraph. The report by Domek in 1996 reports that bacterial pre-leaching of sulfide mineralization improves gold recoveries via cyanide leaching from the range of 20% for run-of-mine sulfide mineralization to over 60% with partial decomposition of sulfides by bacteria. This characteristic also confirms the petrographic studies, which indicate that most of the gold is partially encapsulated within primary sulfides. This condition is typical for high sulfidation epithermal gold mineralization in general. However, bacterial action did not seem to significantly improve the silver recoveries, indicating a different sulfide sulfur salt mineralogical configuration for silver. Now, for me, Mark, it's all about the gold in these sulfides. And so right there is very clear information about the difference. And here's the difference, folks, for the non-geologist out there. When they talk about not completely encapsulated, I'm going to go back to my diamond days because sometimes diamonds can be attached to garnets. Okay. So you do some crushing and it liberates the diamond from the garnet. Okay. Because they grow in the same environment. And how this applies to this sulfide material that makes up 1.8 or some million ounces of gold on your project is that what they're describing there about not being encapsulated is very similar to when a diamond is attached to a garnet. It means that the gold is not encapsulated with sulfides. It's kind of attached to. So by using crushing and gravity separation and bio leaching and other leaching methods, you can easily extract that gold from the unencapsulated sulfides. So doesn't that make an interesting concept about this, talking about it all as refractory, that you're going to need roasters or autoclaves in order to heat up that rock to liberate the gold? No, this is attached to the sulfides, not encapsulated in the sulfides. And folks, this is a very big deal because as it says, they're talking about 60% recovery. That cannot be in encapsulated inside of the sulfide in order to extract it. How's that for some homework, Mark?
That's excellent. I love your analogy and how you've portrayed that. And the one thing to note for people is a lot of this testing was older testing done, standard technological testing that everybody accepts
Okay,
generally.
I'm going to interrupt you again there, folks, for your understanding. What Mark is describing there is that when you do a metallurgical testing, at the start, it's not really optimized. It's standard metallurgical work. It's not optimized for this specific material, okay? And yet, they were still able to get 60% recovery of the gold that's deemed to be sulfide material in the resource estimate. So it's unoptimized metallurgical work. Sorry for interrupting you there, Mark.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It was I was going to say is, we still haven't looked into some newer technologies or optimized technologies on metallurgy for the entire project. So with metallurgy over the last 20 years, it's evolved, and if we can squeeze a few extra points out of it, it can make a big difference on the profitability side. And even going back on your comment about refractory ore, for other people out there that have deposits that are refractory, the cost of liberating that may be a couple $100 extra. So if you're a $1,200 to $1,500 producer in Chile for gold, you might be a 15 to 1,800 producer for gold. And I think at 33, $3,400 gold, you're not so worried whether it's refractory or not. So, I mean, refractory doesn't really matter in the environment we're in. It does increase costs and capex. That's true. And as you said, so elegantly, that doesn't seem to be a problem that we'll be facing. And there's a lot of room for improvement. There's a lot of room for us to do more metallurgical work, which we have some plans. Some of the people, Dave on our team, has outlined a strategy, a very low cost strategy to run some additional metallurgical testing on our pulps that we'll do. And obviously, we have a group doing some metallurgical work, and we're hoping to come out with a report this quarter on recommendations of what next steps we should take metallurgically for testing. So we are focused on that area, but as you said, I think we're scoring an A+ on the report card. We just want to do better.
Well, actually, and kudos to you. You said you have some people working on it, but that's a bit of an understatement, Mark, because you got Kappa's Casing working on it, and they're no rubes, as you will, if you will. That's exactly what they do. And if I'm correct, you actually have some internal technical reports that was done by them and you are working towards being able to talk about that more. Is that correct?
Yeah, Capus Cassidy is world-renowned bankable
Pappas
guy on
Cassidy,
the
sorry.
Yeah, and they did the metallurgy on the project, and they've been really supportive of Choco Olympic because I mean they have a lot of data and they worked on it in the past, and they're close with one of our directors as well. When we first acquired it, they handed us over a lot of data, and Dan Kappas himself, graciously over the weekend did a lot of work and actually signed off on our press release, which I'm very proud of and very thankful to him and his firm for all their support and their guidance. And, he's a very conservative guy, and that's why some things we couldn't say yet. And we're having them do some work so that we can bring more data out and I guess further de-risk the project with them. And their reputation is obviously, stellar
Impeccable.
in the United States. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're
So that you're going to be doing more advanced optimization of your metallurgical work on your sulfides, correct?
Yeah, I think we're going to be doing metallurgical work on oxides, sulfides, mixed zones, reclassification of certain zones, as you and I have previously talked a little bit about. We don't want to confuse people too much, but basically, yeah, we feel there's a lot of room for improvement, and there's a lot more metallurgical work that we can focus on and do to further de-risk the project.
Okay, so now I'm going to get into some more exploration excitement. So you got a resource over a couple million ounces. About, I think, 20% of that is in your oxides. The
Correct.
rest is in what is categorized as sulfides. But again, people, you have to be careful because these are reporting standards, and not all sulfide gold is created the same. In their case, as I read you in their technical report, it's not encapsulated inside of the sulfides. So there's excitement about the resource that is already in the sulfides, but here's the bigger picture. So this is an epithermal vein system, and the model is that epithermal vein systems, they come off of a porphyry. So the porphyry is the heat engine that then gets the vein network to come up, and in this case, create oxide deposits and sulfides. Okay. But what you haven't done yet, in addition to doing exploration for more oxides, is you haven't drilled underneath the sulfide towards what is called the boiling zone of an epithermal vein system. Now, why this excites me so much is that I live in Mexico, and Mexico has produced about 25% of the silver ever produced worldwide from epithermal vein systems. Okay. And they're very high grade and they're low cost and they're money making machines. All right. That's why Mexico has been producing silver for a few hundred years, or so, sorry, since the 1500s, actually. But what's exciting is when you get into the boiling zone of an epithermal vein system, you have some people call it the bonanza zone. You have the perfect environment for temperature and pressure to create these high grade deposits that are coming off of a porphyry. So before we get, I know you want to talk about porphyries because you're a copper guy, but there's what's close to surface and then the heat engine, but in between, there's the boiling zone to target that could be this is what makes mines all over Mexico. And for these high grade, now these boiling zones can be high grade in gold or silver. Mexico is made up of these epithermal boiling zone mines for silver, but there's some world class boiling zones that are rich in gold. The one of the great mines of the world is the Hishikari mine in Japan. That is at one time it was the highest grade uh, gold mine anywhere in the world, and it's a network of epithermal veins. And that was really low cost and high grade. I mean, in some places it was over 100 grams per ton of gold. There's other gold-rich epithermal vein systems like Midas and Sleeper in Nevada that are cash machines as well. So I think you can understand why I'm getting so excited here, Mark, to before we even talk about the porphyry, to talk about what's below your current oxide and sulfide resource, which is the boiling zone of an epithermal vein network.
No, that's a really good geological explanation to why we actually say that we target 7.5 to 9 million ounces at depth. And a lot of our drilling is historically 70 meters down on average. There are some holes of 100, 120 meters, and we're getting consistent 4+ grams per ton from 0 to 120, or getting 32 grams uh 32 grams from 0 to 35 meters. Like, we've got some really amazing
Right
intercepts
at the
that need to be tested
surface.
right at surface. So we got to go down deeper, down to 300 meters, and delineate more high grade gold. One of our last drill holes, uh you know we encountered a very big increase for out of 300 meters. The last 100 meters, the grade of silver and gold increased by like 25, 30%.
What
And I
that
don't want to,
tells you, Mark, is you're getting closer to the boiling zone. And here's another little tidbit for my audience. The Las Chispas mine, and I picked Silvercrest when they were about $1 a share, and they got bought out recently for 1.2 billion or something like that. And it's called a silver mine, but reality is it's a gold and silver mine. Gold pushes most of it, and silver is also important in it. And it comes from an epithermal vein system. And right to the south of that is the Ermitaño mine that is First Majestic. Now, at First Majestic, they did some sampling up top and they got just tiny little sniffs of gold. They drilled down about 150 meters, half an ounce per ton of gold. So this is the nature of these boiling zones. And what you just described there is, I think you could have a boiling zone that's rich in both gold and silver, which would make it tremendous.
no, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, there's just so much upside of the project, and as you alluded to, those engines are also critical too.
Now, here's the other part of the story, and I can see you smiling because you want to talk about the porphyry, because the porphyry was what got you famous when you found that with Norsemont 1.0. So that's the rest of the model, the geological model, folks, is what causes these boiling zones in epithermal veins and oxides and intermediate rock above it is a porphyry engine. Okay. And sometimes porphyries can be a mix of different metals. When you get a gold rich porphyry, it generally comes with high grades of copper as well. And so you've done a minimal amount of drilling, but some of that drilling is actually clipped what looks like a porphyry as well. So not only do you have the oxide transition, sulfide, boiling zone, but you probably have the heat engine there for the whole thing to be intact.
Yeah, I think we may have a couple of heat engines, as some people have said. I think even you mentioned about porphyries can occur in clusters.
They
And
always
so,
do.
yeah, no, definitely. We've got a very unique scenario where we did, and in our deck, we show the gold porphyry, which is in the northeastern part. And then on that hole that I talked about, where the mineralization increases from like a gram and a half, 2 gram type material at depth, and we didn't realize this. And at the bottom of the hole, the grade was off the charts. I mean, we had 9, 6, and 9 meters of 3, 4, 5 grams of gold with 50 to 100 grams of silver. And jackpot was we hit 0.75 and 1% copper, some very high grade copper at the bottom there. And we didn't really expect that. So people say, why didn't you keep on drilling? You hit a copper porphyry, man. And it's like, we didn't know we were looking for gold. We thought the copper would be a lot deeper than what it appears to be. So we do want to go back and test it out. And, Dr. Dyakov, who's on our board, he's a copper porphyry expert. He's like, well, we've got our copper porphyry. We just don't know what the size will be. That's going to be the critical part. And so that's the big blue sky to our project, and something that, makes me happy, I guess, because I'm a copper porphyry guy. And I saw this in the district, and with the data that we had seen, we knew because Rio Tinto was there before us, and they're really smart guys. And they designed in 2007-8 a drill program looking for a copper porphyry, but they just tried 3 holes in a abandoned ship. But we ran more modern geophysics. Again, technology evolves. And MT surveys, I think, got invented in 2010. So they would, Rio Tinto didn't have that advantage. And so, we feel that we're in elephant country. Just north of us is Peru, my old project, and a lot of other amazing copper porphyries are just north of us in the southern part of Peru, and we're in northern Chile.
By the way,
And
that project you had, that's a mine now, isn't it?
correct, Constancia is one of the largest copper mines, I think, that went into production in Peru in recent times, and it's the pride and joy of Hud Bay. I think they've put about 2 billion into it, and I think that's going to pay them dividends. And I'm still a supportive shareholder and believer that that'll add some real value to their bottom line. So it's nice to be in the same district of my past as well. We're in the same elephant country for copper porphyries, which is kind of fun to be along strike that.
Well, I actually think you have the makings of a bigger success story with Norsemont 2.0 than you did with Norsemont 1.0 with the Constancia discovery, because here's why. I see an entire system is intact, that you probably have the porphyry and the epithermal veins coming off of that, and the boiling zone still to be looked for. But here's the other exciting part. Where there's one of these systems, there's usually a lot more. So not only could you have more porphyries, you could have more epithermal veins coming off of those porphyries. And you're already starting with a couple million, 2.5 million ounces in the resource, and everything's wide open with a place where you should be finding a cluster of porphyries and clusters of epithermal veins, Mark.
Yeah, that's why we're excited. I mean, it's a very large district scale project with an amazing, what I call the heart of it, that initial resource with significant upside to it. And there's a lot of work to be done to analyze. And there may be more copper porphyries or more gold porphyries on the system. We don't know. But for now, we have a lot on our plate, and we really need to kind of work hard at de-risking it, increasing the size of the resource, moving our tailings project to production to kind of make us sustainable. So you've got 3+ areas of value creation for our shareholders here. And any one of those will generate, a valuation that's, 10 times what we have today. And if you combine them all together, it's unfathomable.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly excited about sort of the rediscovery. I think that's what's basically happening here, Mark, is you guys were kind of an undiscovered gem for a long time. And now that we're getting a stronger market, you kind of emerging as the potential to be less of an undiscovered gem and more of a discovered gem. And I'm glad to be talking about this evolution with your project, because, like, I do my homework, I do the Google Earth. I look at projects, I look at alteration zones, I look at the oxides, I look at the sulfides, I look at how, the recovery of the gold in the sulfides. I look at the entire system of the geological system, and it has all of the checkbox are checked off on what I like to look for. And that's why I'm so excited to help you get the story out there, Mark.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you doing a lot of due diligence and taking a lot of time to read our 43-1 and go through it and understand the project and see it from the same light that our team sees it, that maybe we haven't articulated ourselves well enough to the investing public. And I'm very pleased with a lot of your colleagues like Don, John, and Robert Zins, and Lobo Tigre and Antonio, and Frank Ferrero. We've had a lot of coverage and support from a lot of your colleagues who see the upside of this. And one thing to clear about your favorite internet troll is we didn't pay any of these guys, and he keeps on saying how we paid them all. But I think they saw, you know, uh, huge upside in our resource, and our valuation was so depressed, and it still is. And so they felt compelled to jump on the bandwagon alongside yourself. And I think your due diligence has been probably the most extensive, and you've really dug deep into the metallurgical side, which sometimes people don't do. And so it's been very beneficial for us and our shareholders to have you help us get this story out and explain the story to our retail audience. A lot of institutional guys and a lot of our larger investors, they really understand this. Like we've got really smart, strategic, long-term guys that come out and say, Mark, this is a 10, 20 bagger. And they don't say it from a promotional standpoint. They say it from a, let's calculate the resource, what the value of this should be. And so it's nice to make it easier for the retail public and your followers to understand this. So I really appreciate us having this open dialogue and you giving some schooling on the metallurgy side and everything that addresses our project because of what's been going on the last week.
Well, I've been doing exploration for 32 years, and along the way, I've had fantastic mentors in geology, geophysics, and geochemistry. A lot of what I do is trying to take that highly technical information and being able to explain it in a way that investors can understand because sometimes the geologists that write news releases they can get really bound down on their jargon and it can also be spoken about in a way that's much more that the average investor out there can understand and I have my mentors to thank for that and I feel very fortunate, and I think I do a fairly good job at trying to take that technical information and remove some of the geospeak and talk to investors out there so that they can understand it.
Yeah, no, that's really important because you're right. When we put out a news release, a lot of times we have to follow the guidelines of what the geologist puts out, and it sometimes excites him, but it's like too technical for the average person to understand. So it's nice to have someone that can decipher that and really explain it properly.
I'm the translator for the
Translate
geospeak.
exactly.
Well, I also get accused of being someone who will take money from anybody and promote them. The reality is that I cover 32 companies, and I think four or five of them are sponsors. So most of my work is actually on companies that don't sponsor my work. So I get accused of a lot of stuff, Mark, and it's nice to hear you say some nice things about how I do my homework, how I try to make it available for everybody and take what's really technical and try to break it down for investors. It's sort of why I do what I do.
And that's why we also follow you for our own investments. Like, a lot of your other colleagues, like Don Durrett, he does a really good job, in my opinion, on due diligence, and John Fennick, and they've been really big supporters as well. And these guys and yourself are really digging deeper for us. I'm putting myself now in the investing public because you talk about some companies in your newsletters and in your blog, and even here publicly today that I'm investing in or considering to invest in myself because of you guys. So I appreciate what you do as well. It makes my life a little easier. Everybody needs to do their own due diligence, and it's nice to lean on someone who's more of a professional, been doing this for so long. Because I got this idea, if you have the same idea and Don has the same idea, it's more likely that we're going to be right than wrong, and let's invest, kind of thing. So it gives people comfort and gives me comfort. And I do really appreciate your support. As you said, we haven't, hired you, we haven't paid you. You've given us a lot of your time out of passion and belief for the project. And I hope to see you become an investor in the company. I'd be very proud to have you as an investor in our company and supporter. And I really do sincerely thank you for all the help that you've provided our audience, our investors, and our team.
Well, I will be. I'm moving around some of my investments right as we speak, Mark. And I will for sure become a shareholder and I'm not really concerned if I pay, what's it trading at today, 65 cents or a dollar or even a dollar 50 or $2, because I think you've got something very special there. And I think that it's not well understood. But I've done my homework, and what I understand has me very excited. And it's nice of you to say those things about my work, because I try to be an idea generator for a lot of people. And you're a CEO of a public company that does outside investments, and I'm glad that it helps you as well.
Absolutely. And actually, something to note, because our news went out today, I came into the market today and bought a little bit of stock because I was looking at some of my accounts. When I looked at my RSP account, I'm like, oh, I got to average down $1.86 cost average of my RSP. Maybe I better pick up a bit of stock here and average down. So I have to see by the end of the day. What transpired, but I know my assistant posted one of the trades that I got filled for in the morning, I guess, and so hopefully we'll see other. I've encouraged some of our insiders to show some support as well and step into the market. And myself, I will be active when I'm permitted to be in the market because I have some accounts to average down from previous fundings that we did all the way up to $1.60 there. So.
And a lot of investors, they like to hear about how management has skin in the game,
Oh,
because it aligns you with the shareholders. You and your family own a significant amount of the stock in this company, right, Mark?
we're buried alive. We're buried alive in gold. Yes, we've invested close to $9 million amongst my family, our family trust. My wife, if we don't deliver, you guys won't be able
Really
to find
good.
the body.
Yeah.
She put her life savings into this.
Oh.
My son's a big investor in this, and our family participates in the market to average ourselves down. Uh, you know, almost every day of the year when we're allowed to.
And you're kind of unique. I only know of one other investor out there, a friend of this show, which is Rob McEwen, who he put a little more money than you did in, Mark. He's got 225 million in his deal, and he only takes a dollar salary, but you take less, don't you?
Yeah, I take zero salary for now because obviously we're being careful with our money and we're aligned with our shareholders. Where I make my money is building out the value of the company and getting the share price to a point where it makes sense, and we create an exit for our shareholders via cash flow or upselling to a mid-tier large cap. And you're right. I mean, I'm a very big fan of Rob McEwen's, and for many years he didn't know that until I met him this year because he puts his money where his mouth is. He's got, a couple hundred million in his own deal. His deal is obviously worth a hell of a lot more. It's a $15 stock versus our stock, and he's got a lot more money. He's a billionaire. I'm not, but I would say from my perspective, when I do due diligence on deals, the first question I ask any CEO is, how much money have you invested in your deal? And sometimes you get a guy like Rob, who's put a couple hundred million in, why wouldn't you bet on someone like that? And then you get other people that tell you, how many free shares they got, which,
A one
unfortunately I'm
cent
not that
share.
lucky.
You
Yeah. So
didn't
so
get
I,
any
I
1 cent share. Your average is north
oh
of.
boy, don't even get me started. We've been lowering our average for 3 years now in this market. So it's almost like thank God it's been a bad market. It gave us an opportunity to lower our costs. I mean, we were sitting north of $1, and I think last year was 72 cents globally. And then I think we're sitting around 50, 45, 50 cent, depending on my RSP is $1.86. I can tell you that. So
Yeah.
that's got to get averaged down because I'm not liking that share price. But yeah, I mean, look, we've got real skin in the game, aligned with our shareholders. There is not a lot of deals in Canada, listed in Canada, like McEwen Mining. I mean, that's a bigger company. Vizsla, the guys behind Vizsla, Craig Perry, he wrote a big monster check. I remember when I first met him, he wrote a $5 million check into one of his placements. So, and Vizsla is
Wow.
obviously a really amazing story and a beast, and I'm a shareholder. So, like, Another plug.
They are a sponsor of my work, actually, and
Well, they should be.
yeah, I love
So,
working with them. And Mike
yeah.
Connor's a great guy. And oh, I had to plug one of my sponsors. Sorry about that. You also have a parallel with Rob McEwen with our troll. He even bashes Rob McEwen.
Wow. I don't know how you can do that because
Yeah,
Rob is not as, I mean, that guy's he's a beast.
and
He's
a true
successful
gentleman
and he has more skin in the game than anybody in Canada that I know.
in
I
his
thought my
own
wife,
deal.
my wife thinks I'm crazy and I tell him about Rob and like, oh, yeah, okay, he's a little crazier than you, but you're still crazy. Like $9 million in a junior deal is unheard of in Canada. Vizsla is obviously, a bigger cap deal, and McEwen Mining is a bigger deal. But for a junior deal, there's very few guys in our space that I ever meet. And I met one recently that has, eight figures in his deal, and I was shocked. And our family actually took we're accumulating a position, but we took a big position in his deal. He's a founder of a billion or multi-billion-dollar deal before, so I can't fault him for putting eight figures into his own deal because I'd expect that from him. But I love
Well, I
people that
want to
put their
give
skin in the
you.
game.
I'm gonna keep working on trying to convince you of something, Mark. Your last deal, you sold it, made the shareholders a lot of money. And Rob McEwen, why he's so wealthy that he can put 225 million into his own deal, is because he brought the great mine in Red Lake into production with Goldcorp, and they were one of the lowest cost producers under his tenure, and it was one of the most successful stocks in the gold mining space during his tenure. And what I'm going to try to convince you of, Mark, not just to look for the boiling zone of the epithermal and more oxides and the heat engine, the porphyry. I'm going to try and convince you to bring this into production because that's the ultimate payday. If you got a project that is low capex, that has a high IRR, it's what I call a free cash flow machine. And I think you might have a free cash flow machine there. And so I'm going to keep working on trying to convince you to bring this into production, Mark.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That's a very good way of creating value for our shareholders. And the time horizon for us in the mining sector with regards to the materials that we already have on site is a very short time frame compared to a lot of the larger capex operations that need a lot more timeline infrastructure capex. I think our tailings can generate enough cash flow. A lot of guys joke with me and they're like, "How would you build a $500 million plant?" I'm like, I don't know. I'd write the check from my back pocket after I process what's on my ground that's sitting there waiting to be processed. I guess I can write the check myself. I don't need banks and I don't need funding potentially.
When you
And
say yourself, you mean the company.
the company, yeah,
Yes,
not
right.
me.
There
I
you
mean,
go.
Rob might be able to help me do that, but,
Yeah.
but yeah, the company we would have the capital, which is a great situation to be in, and puts us, like you said, you get into production, and for any company, you're no longer reliant on the markets. Now it's you got to buy my stock in the market because there's no more funding ever going to be done again once you get some cash flow.
So you
And
could
you can
use that
stream
cash
and lots of
flow.
things you can do.
You could use that cash flow for all the exploration,
Correct. Well,
right?
you can even use all that. There's too much cash flow. There's not.
Uh,
There's a lot of up. There's a lot of upside exploration, but I think the cash flow is going to outstrip all that. There's too much cash flow to even spend it. It's good.
that's what Heliostar and I just did an interview with him a few days ago. We were talking about how, back when gold was down around, not much above the cost of producing it, um, you know, projects didn't make the grade because there wasn't any margin in it. But now when you're looking at the difference between, let's say, 10 or $20 a gram worth of gold, and now it's worth $120 a gram, and it's just sitting right at the surface waiting to be taken off, it's almost like as close as you can get to free money in the mining business as there is. And you got the facility there to process it to get the rest of the free, get it as close to free money as you can, Mark.
Yeah, no, it's a wonderful situation to be in with very minimal capex, with incredible returns in a gold market, sitting at price points that we haven't seen yet, and obviously a lot of people believe, including myself and others, that gold price is going to go north of this. I don't see why we're not sitting at $4,000 plus gold in a year from now. So
We will be. They broke the fiat currency system and they broke the debt system, and that all happened after they took off the gold standard. And the only way to fix it is to get back on the gold standard. And the BRICS nations are doing that. More nations need to do that. And ultimately, that means a lot of buying of gold, and the production is flatlining. It's not going up as the price. Everybody in Economics 101 tells you that a price increase will increase production. It's not doing that, folks. And that's because there's not enough gold mines out there and there's not enough in the pipeline. And it's great to find one that is potentially one of the new producers in Norsemont. I keep calling it Norsemont 2.0, Mark.
that's what we call it too, because sometimes a lot of our previous either management or investors understand the difference, right, from the past exit, which was copper porphyry in Peru versus copper, gold, silver in Chile.
I
See,
like,
similar address, right?
yeah,
But a
yeah.
much bigger prize at the end, right? I think we've got such a big prize with the gold, silver that we have, and then that blue sky with the copper porphyry, which, could outweigh the gold, silver even potentially. So,
Well, you got a great story, Mark, and I'm glad to be a. I told you before I was an enforcer when I played hockey, and I like being protecting my team. So I'm glad to have you as part of my bias is that I want to be right about your company, Mark, and I'm not even a shareholder yet, and I'm certainly not a paid promoter.
no, we appreciate it. And I want you to be right. And I appreciate all your support, honestly, from the bottom of my heart. It's been a tough week or two, and you've been there in our corner, and we do appreciate it. And our investors appreciate it too, because I get a lot of phone calls from guys saying, "Oh, Alan said this, Alan said that." I'm like, "That's what I'm trying to tell you, but I don't know why Alan says it better than I do." That's the way I look at it. I'm like, "You should be telling the story better than me to these investors." So we really appreciate you guys helping us out and making it easier for investors to understand. And look, this is the reason why I've invested so heavily. This is our biggest investment in our family history. You know, for us, if we write $1 million check and we lose $1 million, that's a lot of money, and we walk away with a broken finger or a broken wrist. 9 million bucks,
And you're in the
wheelchair for
dog.
life. With my wife will put me. My wife will do worse than a wheelchair to me.
You're in the doghouse, man. If anyone wants to know how aligned you are with shareholders, there's the coup de
That's
grace.
true. That's until we're back at our glorier days near $3, then my wife will be nice to me again, I
There
guess, and
you
be
go.
happy with me and let me live. Then I have certainty to live.
Well, Mark, as I said before, you're in my personal mining hall of fame because of your past success. And I have a lot of time for you and your Norsemont 2.0 venture. And I'm really glad to be able to tell the story because I think we're going to be able to watch this evolve into a big success. And so, yeah, I got a good memory, Mark. And that's why I'm behind you 100%, Mark. You're in my mining hall of fame, and I want to make you a two-time member of my Rocks and Stocks Mining Hall of Fame.
I'll do everything in my power to make you proud and to achieve that goal. And my personal goal is to either build a multi-billion-dollar company or create a billion-dollar plus success exit for my investors, right? So I haven't really done that as of yet. And I believe this asset and the timing that we're at in the market is a really good point, a turning point. And as you said, the demand for gold, central banks, and all that. I think we're in the right environment here over the next 4 or 5 years. I think we're all going to have a lot of fun and good assets will do very well with the right management teams. And I think we're in the right place too, geologically, geopolitically. Chile's always been an amazing place to operate in, and now it's even more amazing based on what's going on with the government and with their reforms to mining permits. So for us, we've got the wind beneath our wings now, and we're going to be out there working hard and executing for our shareholders.
Well, I'm as equally as bullish on copper as I am on gold, and I keep reiterating to people that I think that this foundation of the fundamentals of gold, copper, silver is better than the 2001 to 2011 metals bull market. And part of my argument is when it comes to gold, it took 50 years since the gold standard to break the fiat currency and the debt system. And I think it's going to take a long time, measured in a decade or two, to fix it. And copper has an equally as bullish story. Look at all these waves of new innovation that's going to need copper. And I keep asking people, well, where's it coming from? I know the pipeline of copper really well. We're depending on really old mines that were found in the 70s, 80s. Since the 1990s, the discoveries have fallen off a cliff, and there's very minimal amount in the pipeline of developments. So where's all the copper going to come from? Copper's got to go a lot higher than it is now. So I think this window of opportunity is going to last longer than a few years, and it might be a few decades, Mark.
Yeah, no, that's a scary thought and a good thought being where we're positioned. And obviously, I'm new as a gold bug over the last 5 years, 6 years here. And obviously, copper, has been the love of my career. And I see copper prices definitely moving north and gold prices as well. And silver, I like silver as well.
Absolutely.
So I think
Silver.
we're in the right place, our
Look at the
project and
fundamentals of
where we're investing.
silver.
Yeah.
The production is like this. The demand is like this. There's a deficit because of solar panels. I was telling your son about there's an analysis done called Moore's Law in technology about putting microprocessors on a chip, and he predicted this 40 years ago, and his curve is bang on. And it's kind of the inverse of what's happening with silver. The price of silver solar panels is going down, 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 down. So as it's going down, the use of it is going up, 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 up. And where are they going to get the silver from? It's this, we're in the early stages, Mark, of a metals bull market that's going to shock people. Even
Gonna make
ultra
and
bulls.
break people. Yeah.
It's so good.
We're all in the right place, the right time here. I think anybody investing into this market is smart to be putting their investments into this metals market for sure.
Perfect, Mark. We got to do this again soon.
Absolutely appreciate it.
Keep up the good work. As
Thank you.
always,
Thanks for all your
folks,
support.
my shows are for information purposes only. It's important for you to do your homework, speak with your financial advisors. Don't take my word for it, even though I'm not biased. I'm not a paid promoter on this on Norsemont. And I would advise you go to page 80 of the company's NI 43101, and you'll read what I talked about. I quoted the paragraph that it's in. It starts with the guy who wrote the previous report. So do that homework. Don't let internet trolls sway your decisions. Do your own homework. That's what I'm only an idea generator who uses my 32 years of exploration experience to help you come up with ideas. This is a great idea for you to do your homework on. I'm going to keep following this relentlessly, and I think we're going to have lots to talk about, and they'll have great news flow. So, on that note, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.